It's they show responsibility, to put a roof over my head, even though we weren't rich at all by any means. We actually would qualify for low-income family. Um, and I was really grateful for it, just how much they poured in and sacrificed themselves to provide me with a better future. But along with the good is also the not as good. And I think some of the residue from how I grew up was there was a lack of, because they had to work so hard to provide for me, there was a lack of emotional connection. They were both emotionally broken people, and they found that the best way to love me, it was to work hard and provide, but not necessarily to be like, hey, how's your day? Um, it got to a point where I think for a good 5 years in a row, my mom didn't remember my birthday, or like I think the funniest thing was when I told them about when I graduated from high school, and my mom was like, "You're graduating?" It sounds weird, but it happened. But it wasn't that they didn't love me. It was just it was harder. It was harder with that lack of time and to connect with me. And also, along with the desires to work so hard to provide for me, a lot of times the love can come out being very conditional. So, for example, if I was to get good grades, if I was gotten to Berkeley, all is well. Like that was one of the goals, and I remember it didn't matter that I was sneaking out at night. Uh, well, I usually say go to the library, but that's not true. I went out to drink. I snuck out to like do stuff I wanted, but because my parents weren't home when my parents weren't around. Like as long as I got good grades, as long as I made money, that was all good. So I mean, there were a lot of good, and there was some not as good. But as a result, I think I distinctly remember this. That at age of 15, I finally realized what I really wanted in life, and that was to have a complete loving family, the one that I did not have as a kid. Like I literally there are weird things I went to extraordinary lengths for that. For example, like I refused to watch all the old Disney movies because I'm waiting to watch it with my future kid. Like that was how weird looking my logic came. But yeah, so like for example, Snow White, Little Mermaid, whatever. I never seen them. Um, and like I also went about it, in the way that I kind of know how. So I was very focused on being a responsible person and being a person that can provide. Um, and sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Okay, so I started working really hard. Like even as early as like college, I worked part time to put myself through school, got degrees, and after even when I got out, like I've always had a job and a side job to try to do something else, like very Silicon Valley-ish. I'm sure people know others are like that. Because it was a great model that my parents gave me, but at the same time, I find myself becoming I find myself becoming further and further from what I wanted. For example, it started off with hard work, but then I ended up not having as a lot of time to build tight relationships, and then that became less. Then there was a disconnect between who I want to be and how I was. So I put more time into work because that was the only thing that made me better. And then I had less time, and it was a spiral downwards in which it kind of came to an end where when I was 27, and I realized, wow, like I've achieved a decent amount of stuff materially, but I neither had love nor I wasn't even capable of missing people. Like in my head, I thought about tasks, but not people, which was really weird. I tell people about that, and no one understand what that means, and quite frankly, it is kind of weird. And I think that's when I first came back to God under the acts of PJ and AJ. And it's really because like for the first time I really felt wow, I'm so broken, and I've had so many failed relationship with girls already that am I not able to get married? Will I even love my kid the way I want to love him? Maybe I'll just be like my dad, biological dad. And I didn't want to bring any kid under that circumstance. I didn't want kids to have to come through what I went through. Like I'm here because that's not the end of that story. It started off with just basically coming back to church and making a commitment to church and not going through the motions. I started really committed to coming on Sundays, coming to a small group, even though it was a 45-minute drive away each time. I started to read Bible and pray, even though at the time, I was still very busy when I first started coming to church. And slowly but surely, like it started off with the interest, right? Like Jesus, the story of Jesus is pretty awesome if you really read it, as is. He's very interesting, And then I think that what caught me also in the Bible was the promise that God's gonna be father to the fatherless. That really spoke to me. And then it starts with, okay, well, there's actually now a community where I had to go deeper, not like friends that I go party and drink with, but now I have to live among people, and especially small group where you start sharing issues. And I realized I'm actually not that weird. There are a lot of guys here that I know that struggle with family issues on their own. There's even an example in my small group where there's a single mother trying to raise kids to be the best way that she knows how. And then it starts off, after that, then I started praying. I started to understand that, hey, you know what? Like, wow, I'm actually not that good as I think. Bible clearly states I'm pretty terrible. If you were to read Bible and you read like the whole like what constitutes a sin and all that stuff, I am not anywhere near the person I thought I am. But at the same time, that's when I first understood what unconditional love is, because there's also the promise that God just loves me. He doesn't care, doesn't matter. Because of Jesus, he's always here. And that kind of spiraled up into allowing me to be more open about my vulnerabilities. For example, I used to think that going to therapy is for crazy people. Like, literally, you're crazy, and that's why you go to therapy. But around 2010, that's when I started going to therapy, because I was able to accept that maybe I needed some help, and it wasn't that bad. I'm still in therapy today, and it continued to spiral up. Like, there was a lot of people here went through the struggle of me deciding whether I want to get married with June, it was a struggle, and a lot of fear was internally in my head, in my heart. But somehow at that time I started to spiral up and say, okay, you know what, like maybe I can, and made that commitment. And I think as I kept going, as this relationship kept evolving from a brain all the way down to here, I started to really be moved now, not just logically understanding the unconditional love, but be moved by that love. I remember the first time I was singing a worship song in the church, and tears were streaming down. And that was weird because I've witnessed way worse things than that as a child, and I've never cried. I think the last time I remember crying was when I was 9 years old, I think. Maybe there's one time here and there, but I never cried. And so it was a really weird thing for me. But it was also a step towards a different direction, And now I believe that when I come here, this is God's house. I don't think this is just a lecture or attendee, but when I'm here, I feel God. When I'm in my small group, it's a sanctuary to be open and honest. All that actually sounds so very selfish, but as I kept growing, I started to open up more even. Through the accepting of the unconditional love, and understand more and more, it's weird, like now when I pray and when I read the Bible, when I don't understand something, sometimes there's a voice in my head that kind of explains what that really means, or what I should be doing when I pray for something. And then I see the world very differently now as well. Like, Small group in church is now no longer something I take from. Wait, sorry, that's a really wrong way to say it. But before I came here, desiring to receive love and be repaired. And now I have to believe that I can show love. I can love others. I can be patient and kind, so on and so forth. I'm not saying I do it right, and trust me, if you ask small group in my Galilee or if you ask June, it's probably a very different picture that I'm painting right now. But since they're not here, that's my story. But I think when AJ asked me to come up and testify, I thought a lot about what happened the past 6 years. And it's pretty amazing how when I was 15 to when I was 27, I wanted to be so bad about this guy who can actually love and have a wonderful, complete family. And it went further and further away from what I wanted to be. But in the last 6 years, I'm much closer, and I feel like I'm heading towards the right direction than I ever thought was possible. You know, and I feel free now. I feel positive. I'm hopeful. One of the things I never told a lot of people was when June and I first got married, I told her I didn't want to have kids because I would ruin it, you know. And maybe it was nicer to adopt a kid because I can't ruin it. I can't ruin that bad if the kid never had a father, right? Like that's, you know, start from the low. But I think in the last 2 years, we believe in something different now, and we've been praying for our own kids. There's more than just that. Like I've had a mentee now. Before I used to think I would ruin people's lives, seriously. But now it's different. The thoughts are different. The heart is different. So I think I wanted to just end this testimony really. Just give glory to the Father that I found the last 6 years, my Heavenly Father. And I think the verse that really comes to mind that I really, really love is 1 John 4, verse 18. There's no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made in perfect love. I realize that sums up so much of my transformation. A lot of what I did before, a lot of the work and stuff is because there's a fear that I was not adequate. But I was not adequate. And now I can know that I am not adequate, and that's okay. God loves me right now. And more importantly, God calls me into a relationship which I don't believe I will be adequate in the future because I am the Son of God. You know, He calls me like the songs that we sing. You know, we are the Son of God. We're the sons and daughters of God. And so, my heart is that by testifying this, by trying to be more open about where I was, I hope that gives an example, a data point of what it really means to have the gospel affect you. And I mean, even though it's a Father's Day, but truly I feel like it applies in all life stages. Receiving and allowing God to love you, I believe, can make us a better father to our children, better husband to our wife, and just a godly example. Just an example of being a godly man to others. Whether you're single or you're out there at work. And really starts with a relationship with God. And today, I just want to honor that relationship.
This morning, I have received a Father's Day gift from one of my children, and it's a barbecue cookbook. So the image must be that you need to improve your barbecue skill. You're not perfect. Okay, I can take that. It's fine. I actually love it. I actually need to be, good in my barbecue. The pride, the man's pride thing, right? But we all have a different image of a father, okay? And even though our Father tried so hard, some didn't try as hard, some tried very hard. We are, fathers are not perfect, and we have different images of Father, right? His own busyness, how he handled his failures and success and all that. And sometimes it is very hard for us to bring up, this appreciation of the